Hello, I'm Tom Oakes. I'm a solutions engineer for the intelligence sector, and joining me today is Thomas Warner, who works in our defense sector. We're going to cover what's new in ArcGIS Pro's 2.6 release. For some of you newer to the GIS community, we realize Esri's ArcGIS platform can be overwhelming with the sheer number of products we offer and cover in these sessions. As a conceptual idea, ArcGIS Pro fits well as part of the whole platform, but is best utilized by you and your colleagues whose tasks are mostly in the yellow square on the left. You are the ones charged with mapping, visualization, cartographic work. You create those vibrant maps for production, web, mobile, 3D, and many other uses. Or you are the ones doing analytic workflows and visualizations, such as big data analytics, spatial statistics, data engineering, and much more. Now, with each release, there are always so many good things to talk about. This presents the challenge for Thomas and myself, and many of my colleagues, is what to find the best things to highlight and cover in a short time span. So what we decided to do was choose some big ticket items we thought that might be helpful, but also grabbed a few other items that we felt might be applicable to this meeting. And a couple things to keep in mind over the next 30 minutes or so. First, we are not covering this in any way of level of importance, as we realize everybody's favorite topic may be different. And second, some items were left out of our presentation or will not be covered in depth, as there are many other great sessions immediately following this, which will go into more detail about the capabilities of ArcGIS Pro and the rest of the Esri platform. So with that, here we go. First, we'll start with animation. In ArcGIS Pro 2.6, our users can now interactively edit an animation and its keyframes by working directly in a map or scene. You'll use the new Edit Current Keyframe tool to activate interactive editing, display the animation path and its keyframes, and visualize the changes as you make them. This provides for a more intuitive workflow and a better authoring experience for those creating animations or fly-throughs for your work. Next, raster analysis tools. As ArcGIS Pro is geared to work with the enterprise, you can unlock further tool sets by leveraging your ArcGIS image server. There are also many more improvements in geoprocessing tools that have been reworked to perform better imagery workflows and are more integrated into the raster workflows. Next up is pop-ups. Pop-ups seem to be one of the most frequently mentioned items in the GeoNet site across the platform. While not all mentions are for ArcGIS Pro, we can see how important this topic is for a large part of the community. With this release of ArcGIS Pro, there are many improvements in this area, such as many new options to configure in terms of arranging elements to support side-by-side content, configuring horizontal distribution of multiple elements, interactive drag and drop elements during creation, and much, much more. Let's take a look at the new pop-ups. Here we have a map reflecting the COVID daily cases of July 3rd in the southwestern United States. We can look at Phoenix and its surrounding area and see the information in the basic pop-up, where we have information from the table and a day-to-day case count. With the improvements at ArcGIS Pro 2.6, let's reconfigure this pop-up. You can see a new improved dialog, plus the addition of new items such as carousels. Within a carousel, we can add multiple media items. So for example, let's go ahead and add an image, give it a new title, and for example, we can add a second image as well. And we can arrange the carousel either to be part of the pop-up by itself, or there's new options as well. We can split this into horizontally or vertically stacked elements. So for example, we have multiple media items showing at the same time. Let's take a look at this. Now we see the new pop-up with our media items. Our new pop-up can reflect this. That's just some of the many improvements of pop-ups. I encourage you to read more about this. Trace networks. Trace network uses a set of connected edges and junctions along with network attributes to model the flow of resources through the network. Trace networks can be created using existing feature classes in a feature dataset as the source junctions and edges, or through direct migration from a geometric network. Now, the connectivity will be established when the network topology is enabled. The network topology provides capability to perform advanced analytic functions such as tracing and creation of network diagrams, as well as validation for the network. This would be applicable to those who are modeling hydro, rail, or others, where you can show a disruption in the network itself and see the cascading effect downstream from any of these impacts. Another improvement in ArcGIS Pro 2.6 is in project recovery. With project recovery, you can automatically back up your open project at a specified interval in minutes. The backup process does not interrupt your work or slow down the performance of ArcGIS Pro. You can continue to save the project manually whenever you want. Now, if ArcGIS Pro shuts down unexpectedly, the backup project will contain a snapshot of your recent work. Well, most of us are home right now working remotely on laptops with a battery backup. This is more applicable to your workstations. So many of you do not have the UPC power backups, and when you lose power, you lose your work. The project recovery will prevent that from happening by having that backup ready for you. And once power is reestablished, you can just continue work from there. The project recovery option is also located backstage under Project, Options, and similar to our editing selection, whereas in editing, we can select the number of minutes or operations to automatically save the progress. We can visit General, see the project recovery option, and choose to set the number of minutes we wish ArcGIS Pro to automatically save the entire project and create a backup for us for future use. Next up, vector tiles. For those doing production work, there's been huge improvements to the label engines in ArcGIS Pro 2.6. This allows expanded options when creating vector tiles, such as the vertical placement of text, as shown here. There are also many other options and improvements in this area. Another improvement in ArcGIS Pro 2.6 is the addition of link analysis. You may have seen earlier iterations of link charts and some analysis tools in the solutions releases of ArcGIS Pro Intelligence, but much of that capability is now integrated into the core ArcGIS Pro 2.6 release. Link analysis is that process of building a network of interconnected objects through relationships to discover patterns and trends. The main objective is to find and link information from various sources and to adequately represent and estimate the relevance of this information to discover hidden relationships. Link analysis and visualizations with link charts are key tools in building an understanding of how networks are structured and function. Now, the link chart is that visualization of the relationships between the different entities. And you see an example here on the center right. Link charts can have many types of nodes, for example, a person, a building, even a mobile device. The links between the nodes are shown in a series of the annotation lines, which helps you establish that relationship. This type of functionality is very relevant in our current situation with contact tracing and other efforts around COVID, which I'll show you in a short demo. We will use ArcGIS Pro 2.6 to help identify links between confirmed COVID cases and the locations they visited to understand the possible spread of the illness. The data we will use is an online source published by the Singapore Ministry of Health. The data represents places visited like COVID cases under various states of the illness when diagnosed. For example, asymptomatic, they were confirmed, they had either recovered or were symptomatic at the time of diagnosis. To understand this data in more detail, we can look at the table and see more information. Here we see all of the cases, their status, descriptions, where they may have contracted the illness, and the date timestamp of possible infection. Now we want to see any of the connections between these cases. We'll do that by creating a link chart. To begin, we go to our Insert tab, choose to create a new link chart, and start our analysis. We will begin by creating our first nodes representing the cases. Here we'll choose a data set, the field that applies, and give it a name. And because these represent people who are technically non-spatial entities, we'll go ahead and note that here. Our next set of nodes will represent the actual locations or places they may have been infected. Then after changing the symbology to differentiate between the two node types, we will complete the chart by establishing the relationships. Now we have the beginning of our link chart, and we can choose to visualize it in different patterns. For example, we can choose a hierarchical layout, which is technically more relevant to law enforcement, but because we're tracking an illness, we'll choose the organic layout, which is more applicable. Now we can look a little bit more detail to get a better idea of the breakdown of this information. But being geographers, obviously we want to see this on a map. So I'll drag my link chart to the right side. And as I select certain areas of the chart, you'll see the nodes represented on the left on the map view in their physical locations. Now let's zoom in a little bit further to get an idea of what we're looking at here. As I move in closer, you'll see the dark nodes are representing the locations, and the red nodes representing the cases themselves, the people with their case numbers. And we can see how they move between different locations and possibly continue spreading the illness. Let's look at this in more detail. We have one religious organization that seems to be a center of many infections. So let's use our link analysis tools to find out how. We can choose path, centrality, clustering, or neighborhood. For this analysis, we'll choose neighborhood. We can denote directionality and the level or the degree of separation. So for example, as I choose that organization, we see the immediate connections and relationships of the nodes of the people that may have been infected at that space. Then we choose a second level, third level, and so on. So we see that degree of separation from the physical location to each case that visited or may have visited a person who visited, and so on and so forth, to get an idea of how specific locations may have been the source of superspreader events. Now, obviously, we want to take this a little bit further, maybe add some date-time analysis to get a better understanding of connectivity. But for now, I'll turn this presentation over to Thomas Warner, who will continue showing us more of the additions of ArcGIS Pro 2.6.
Thanks, Tom. I'm going to keep moving forward with what we've added to ArcGIS Pro 2.6, but we'll also take a dive into what's to come in a little bit. So let's jump back in with enhancements to cartographic production workflows. Now we can add graphic layers to the map view. These are comprised of geometric elements like points and lines, but you can also include text and even images. So why is this important or even useful? Well, you can adjust their appearance, scale range, spatial reference, similar to traditional layers in the map view, and then quickly share them to the web. Under the same umbrella as graphic layer updates are the improvements that have been added to the labeling and annotation. I mentioned on the last slide that you can add graphic text to a map view, and one of the ways you can do this is by converting labels to graphic layers. We also have the addition of composite callouts to the menu of callout options. Now, these are advanced callouts that have individually controlled parts, giving users more flexibility when setting point label placements. These callouts are commonly used on aeronautical charts, so it will be of great benefit to customers in that space. And speaking of charts, there's now a custom sort option on the Data tab in the Chart Properties pane. This allows you to manually reorder the series in your chart. Now, for example, you may want to use custom sorting to keep weekdays in their natural order. Also, bar charts can now visualize thematic raster data with attribute tables. And select by polygon and select by lasso, those tools have been added to make it easier to select subsets of your chart data, giving you more control over selections when interacting with a chart. Prior to 2.6, there was only the select by rectangle tool, so there will be a lot more flexibility with your selections now. In Pro 2.6, you can now view and interact with NetCDF data as 3D volumetric layers. This is very beneficial for subsurface modeling and understanding distribution of soil types, weather data, as well as space-time analysis where the Z value is the temporal value. And we'll see this in action in upcoming presentations today. Building scene layers with Revit, BIM, or other types of data are supported when sharing to ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8.1. Labels are now supported on 3D object scene layers as well. And integrated mesh scene layers have received added editing improvements. And we'll take a look at those tools in just a little bit. For customers who use CAD and or BIM data, you can now make cloud connections to Autodesk BIM 360 repositories. This is of great interest to me. I've been working with Autodesk and Esri products since R14 and ArcInfo 3.2b respectively, and have always wanted a simple integrated workflow. Similar to ArcGIS Online, with Autodesk BIM 360, after establishing a cloud connection, you can access your data and use it within your ArcGIS Pro project. And now let's go ahead and take a look at how that's actually done. To connect to Autodesk 360, it's as simple as going to your Insert tab and selecting Connections and then selecting New BIM Cloud Connection. Mine's grayed out because I've already connected. Once the connection is made, you will go to your catalog pane and sign in. And then once signed in, you can retrieve your data and add it to the map. Here, we've already added ours to the map for time's sake. It's great to see this in 2D, but the real functionality comes in seeing it in 3 dimensions. Because this is BIM, you can visualize the building in all of its granularity. Here we can go down to the structural elements. This will be of great interest to facility, real property personnel, and analysts alike, because the true power of this cloud connection is that it's a shared connection to all. And when updates occur, your model is updated as well, making this a seamless workflow. And since you're connected to your organizational account through ArcGIS Pro, you can share your model to your ArcGIS Online or Enterprise portal, ensuring that all stakeholders are up to date. And here it is within ArcGIS Online. Once you're ready to commit the BIM data to GIS, you can bring up the BIM file to Geodatabase processing tool to convert your data, giving you the 3D functionality of BIM with the organizational structure and analysis possibilities of GIS. Expanding our scale from a single building to a city, ArcGIS Pro now has new editing capabilities for integrated mesh scene layers. This imagery of Frankfurt that we see in front of us was captured and processed by our new N-Frames team using Sure software, which will be discussed in more detail later today. Now, while this is really beautiful to look at and fun to play around with, I can assure you, let's go ahead and look at these new capabilities within ArcGIS Pro. We're going to move to a site that's being constructed at this moment right in Frankfurt. And what we want to do is visualize what this new site's going to look like. But before we do that, this is an 8 gigabyte file, and there's a lot of information that we really don't need. So what we're going to do is isolate just the area that we're going to work with. We can do that by using the editing tools new to 2.6. We're going to use the mask option and just surround our area of interest with our polygon and simply double click. Now we've isolated just what we need. With our mask complete, now we can focus in on our visualization. We'll have to prep for the new tool that we're going to use, Extract Multipatch from Mesh, by creating a polygon over the area that we're going to extract, going to the Appearance tab, going to Extrude Type, and selecting Absolute Height. This encompasses the area of extraction. Then we can go to our geoprocessing tool, Extract Multipatch from Mesh, and select Run. It quickly renders the new area that we're capturing to visualize. Now that this is a multi-patch, I have full editing capabilities. I can move, rotate, scale this extraction to fit my needs. Before we do any editing though, we should prep the area where we're going to add the new development for visualization. And again, we're going to use the new tools that are provided in 2.6. Here I'm going to clip the area to remove any 3D mesh that is currently there. And now I can visualize my fully rendered apartment complex. By extracting the multi-patch and using simple editing tools like move and rotate and copy, I was able to create an interesting visualization that gives us an understanding of exactly what it might look like with this new development. And of course, we can always share it to the web. And here it is in the web. And it looks better in the web than it did on my computer. It moves and reacts so smoothly. With Autodesk 360 and the new mesh scene layer editing tools, ArcGIS Pro gives us the ability to visualize, analyze, and author great 3D scenes. And as Tom stated, there is so much more that we could show you for ArcGIS Pro 2.6, but we just don't have the time. You will be seeing new and interesting processes, tools, and workflows in the following presentations later today. With that, when you receive these slides, be sure to select the links where you can watch the What's New in 2.6 video, or visit the ArcGIS Pro blog as well. Or please take the time to view the videos of FedGIS that we did earlier this year. So let's take a look at what's to come in ArcGIS Pro. Items highlighted in yellow are the last big ArcMap equivalency tools and products we are aware of. We're getting really close to where we can say that we are past any dependency on ArcMap. In the left-hand column, we can see some of the capabilities we did not go over, like non-spatial objects and utility networks. This gives the capability for storage, management, and editing of non-spatial objects within a utility network. There's also geoprocessing leveraging spatial databases. These are new options to run certain geoprocessing tools like buffer, spatial join, select, or intersect as queries in databases that support these options, which will result in improved performance. Underneath the spatial databases is the interactive suitability analysis. This provides a suitability modeling experience to create and evaluate the model interactively by exploring dynamically created intermediate and final outputs. We didn't discuss GPS support, where you can connect, collect data, and update positions directly from GPS devices, or bivariate symbology, where you symbolize and display data relationships from multiple related variables. Within the midterm, which means the next 2 to 3 releases, some of the highlights are knowledge graphs, which provide a platform-level way to create, visualize, and query a graph network containing entities and relationships. That's going to be a game changer. There's projects and enterprises. It's just much like it sounds. Use your portal to share projects, collaborate, and work more efficiently with others in your organization. And then there's voxel layer sharing. These voxels that we're learning about today, where we'll be able to share voxel scene layers across the platform for use in web, desktop, and mobile apps. And finally, in the near term, there's animated symbols. These are symbols that dynamically change to show direction of movement, change in intensity, or fluctuations in the value to support scientific temporal data visualizations. And in our long-term plans for ArcGIS Pro, there's terrain editing, 3D mesh as ground, which is the ability to use integrated mesh or TIN information as a true triangulated ground surface that would be more precise than our raster surfaces and allow structures such as tunnels and mines. And there's high fidelity rendering, and that's the ability to use material properties for smoothness, glossiness, roughness, and other characteristics to render realistic textures in 3D. And as always, we have training offerings from the general online Learn ArcGIS lessons to ArcGIS Pro migration to industry specific, where you can dive in on your own at your own speed. But if you like that back and forth where you can get your questions answered promptly, we have instructor-led classes as well, many of which delve into defense and intelligence and public safety.